At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. So all I did was leave for a couple days. And wow. A lot has happened over the last few days. So we have a busy show today. But I want to open with, there's a lot of different emotions going on after Operation Midnight Hammer, which was a huge success, one of the largest operations and most successful ones in recent history to try to annihilate Iran's nuclear capabilities. So there's a lot of emotion surrounding that where, wow, America is pretty badass. Two, a relief. People are feeling a lot of relief in that, okay, if we did knock out Fordow and take out a lot of the nuclear facilities or their infrastructure, then we're probably putting Iran back decades in terms of them rebuilding and being a severe threat. On the other hand, though, people are concerned about what Iran is going to do next. Are their fringes and their proxies and their cells that have infiltrated America through our open border policy, and Iran has already vowed retaliation, and he's going to retaliate against Western countries, going to retaliate against Israel. So what happens next? But it's interesting because I was visiting my nieces and nephews in Iowa, Kansas City, Missouri, and Omaha. So we were there roughly around the time that the B-2 bombers were leaving and this mission was underway. What's fascinating about you need to look at the details of how they did the decoy, where they had some bombers go to the west, some go to the east. Then they had the surface-to-missile attacks coming to Iran from the east, and there was a lot of decoying such that America could come in and finish the job that Israel started in terms of using their bunker busters that Israel doesn't have. And people were asking me this weekend, going, well, wait a second, Iran, how do you know Iran was going to use a nuclear weapon? Okay, well, first of all, you don't build something hidden deep down in a mountain, okay? Yeah, and while you're threatening, every few weeks we hear threats, and attacks to America has been going on for a while. There was, I can't give a percentage, but, trust me, Iran, wanted to have a weapon, and they wouldn't just hold on to the weapon. They would probably use it. What happens next? This is what everybody wants to know. What happens next? Well, we're all watching. Iran's not going to go away quietly with this. Okay. They're going to be mad. They're going to want to show some sort of force. There might be a regime change. And remember, this all happened because there was help from Iranians that didn't like the current regime. You can't be a woman with the same sort of freedoms that you can in Israel or America. You can't be LGBTQAI plus there. You can't, there's, so many, obstructive and very intrusive political policies and government control that the Iranian current regime is not a popular one. So this wasn't just Israel able to get in with spies. They had help on the inside. And I had a nephew that apparently was in Israel at the time, and he was on one of those cruise ships that got to Cyprus and then was able to get flown back to America with the help of Governor DeSantis and the Israeli Navy. So thank you for those of you asking about how, the family's doing and if everybody's safe. But it is going to be, Iran's going to want to make a show of strength. They want to look like they can retaliate, but they can't. They don't have the capability. They can't beat America. They can't beat Israel. But be on guard. Citizens of Qatar have been told to shelter in place. America and the UK are warning a lot of their citizens as Iran. See, here you look at U.S. and Israel as attacking the precise military targets, whereas Iran, they're sending missiles that's hitting hospitals and roads, and I mean it's indiscriminate. And so rather than Iran saying you attacked our military capabilities, we're going to precisely attack your military capabilities. No, they're raining terror on civilians, and you see the civilians keep going to the bomb shelters. I'm supposed to be in Israel in a few months. I'm still planning on going, and I'm going to definitely research the bomb shelters so I know where to go if I have to. But it's a much different mindset, and so another thing that people aren't realizing is that the U.S. has been planning this and preparing this. The U.S. isn't stupid. They knew that a piece of paper was not going to, have Iran hold to their promise of, okay, I'm not going to, launch a nuclear weapon, or I'm not going to use nukes on Israel and on American allies. So this was not something pulled together in the last 5 to 7 days. This was something that was, from what we're being told, years in the making. And most of these operations that we see took years and years and years to plan. So, what America was able to do with their decoy flights and with their, precise knocking out of multiple facilities was historic. And what happens next? Well, just be prepared. Iran is pissed. They're gonna try to fight back, make some show of force, because in order for their regime to do what they need to do, they need people to fear them. And they need everybody, even not only their enemies, but their friendlies, to fear them. So they're going to want to show that which is why it was so imperative for America to help Israel finish the job. Because if Iran doesn't have a lot of weapons, except nuclear weapons, this would be the time they would then try and use them. So this was Operation Midnight Hammer. What a name! Rising Lion. This is a long, drawn out battle that didn't just start a week or two ago. This has been going on for decades. And as Iran has been able to enrich uranium and build nuclear weapons, and again, I'm really simplifying it. I'm no military strategist, but from what I'm seeing, the majority of Americans are like, okay, good. We don't want Iran having a nuclear weapon. We just now got to get through the next bumpy parts until they go through a regime change and get their act together. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So it's summertime, and so many of you are going to the amusement parks. Now, I prefer to go to amusement parks in the spring or fall because it's not hot and humid, but a lot of these parks also have water parks, and the water park doesn't open until the summer. So many, not to mention the kids are out of school, so roller coasters and amusement parks and water rides, this is probably one of the most favorite things people like to do in the summer. And I was just at Adventureland Park in Iowa, in Altoona, Iowa. It was fantastic, but I got to tell you, I think my brain got thrown around, and I tell you, I was fearing some medical sequelae from being upside down and tilted and thrown around and suspended. And so let's talk about the safety of roller coasters, all right, for a second. Now, I guess the statistics are, in terms of injuries, it's less than 1 per million per year in terms of it's very rare to, let's say, fall off a roller coaster, which God forbid we never want to see, or suffer a severe stroke or aneurysm. But the potential is there. The most common injuries people get from roller coasters is they're stiff. They may get whiplash because you're thrown around. Headaches, muscle aches, sprains, strains. Some people hurt their ankles, bruising because you're being thrown around a metal little cart. So there's a lot of musculoskeletal type injuries. Sadly, there were cases where the roller coaster malfunctioned, or that one boy where the brace and the harness didn't completely cover him because he was of a weight that wasn't safe under safety standards. He didn't fall under the safety standard weight, and the people who were supposed to buckle them in and make sure they were checked in did a half-assed job, and sadly he fell off the ride and died. And we spoke about that story years ago. So mechanically there could be issues, but what about those of us that go on the ride? We're like, yee-haw, that was a good one. And we're walking off the ride. Did we suffer from anything that could possibly hurt us later? So there has been studies looking at the G-force of a roller coaster. And the G-force, depending on the level, can lead to excessive amounts of blood that go to the brain in such a short course of time. This could cause vessel damage, increased bleeding, increased intracranial pressure. In fact, one of my eye doctors that I work with, Dr. Mark Dubrava, I had asked him because my son just had PRK, a form of LASIK, a photocorrective surgery for his eyes. And I said, look, can he be on roller coasters? He said, yes. But we really don't like bungee jumping because bungee jumping has been linked to retinal detachments. Retina, it's the lining in the back of the eye. If that separates, you have permanent blindness. So I'm going on these rides, and I had to do all the scary rides because I just, I just love roller coasters. And I love that feeling of being, I don't know if I really like being scared, but I like the feeling of, okay, I did that. I mean, there was one ride where you are going up at a 90-degree level, just staring up at the sky going, please don't fall, please don't fall. And then you just go, it was called the Monster. And that ride I decided to do first because I wanted to get the scariest one over with. And you're flipped around, but it wasn't to me as dangerous in terms of your brain as the Dragon Slayer. So at Adventureland Park, they have a ride called now, by the way, everybody working there was great. And I felt like the machinery and the equipment was safe. But I went with my nephew and my son, and we're on this roller coaster where as it's doing a roller coaster, you're actually flipping around and around. Stupid. And you're facing your family members. So all I am seeing as I'm flipping is my nephew's hair and feet. And I don't, because I want to make sure he's okay, and all I see are feet and hair. But because I kept seeing feet and hair every 2 seconds, I'm like, okay, at least he's still on the ride. But I was thinking to myself, am I giving myself a concussion? Is the brain hitting, the side of my skull, your counter coup, where when your brain oscillates, within the fluid to try to, shock absorb. But am I giving myself a concussion? And then when you're suspended and hanging upside down, you're like, everything's moving. And so, your organs were not designed for that. If you're ever worried about something that might not be safe for your body, go back to the caveman days. Right? I mean, your body was designed to be able to survive during caveman days. Now, in caveman days, did you get, thrusted and G-forced and shot into the air and then fall back down and then caught? And no, you were on the ground. I mean, you might have climbed a tree, but you didn't really fall a lot of feet. You didn't get shaken up. You didn't. And so that's why many of these roller coasters say if you have a heart condition, if you're at risk for stroke, if you have an aneurysm, which is a ballooning of the blood vessel, if you are at risk for aortic dissection, where the lining can tear, don't be going on roller coasters. I'm now of an age, having had another birthday, that I have to make a decision. If I'm going to now, start to let the young ones do their thing and I do me, or if I want to still enjoy life and still have fun. And I wanted to still have fun. And I'm glad I did. I'm sore, probably have some whiplash. The boobies got crushed because you had to put that harness on. But there are risks. What I do recommend, and I'm going to republish this for you guys because I wrote a blog about the height and weight requirements of amusement parks. Because one thing that causes a lot of, let's say, injuries or issues is you have somebody who's either too tall, too short, not the right weight. And many of these amusement parks, after that 14-year-old, I think his name was Tyre Sampson, had died in the Orlando free fall ride at the Icon Park in Florida, I wrote a piece linking the height and weight requirements, for a parent to look up. And many of the parks didn't have that. So I'm hoping that changed. The Icon Park had no mention of height or weight requirements at the time this happened, and that was, I think, in 2022. Tyre was 14 years old. He was with other football players. He was a football star, academic star, was 6'5" tall, weighed 340 pounds. But on that ride, he exceeded the weight. The harness couldn't hold him, and tragically, he died. Holiday World and Splashing Safari did list, I think, 77 inches, maximum height, weight 300 pounds. Some of the water slides, Disney World had some height requirements, Disneyland, but maybe not weight. I don't know if they've changed it to have weight. And so I'll repost this, and the link should hopefully be updated because we kind of made a lot of we spoke a lot about how this needs to be done, and it looks like the Disneyland, we still have the height requirements. I don't see the weight requirements on that, but weight is important. And so if you feel like, I don't know if I'm going to be the right weight or the harness has been tested to hold me, you might not want to go on the ride because these rides do defy gravity. They do defy what a human body should go through. but they claim they're safe because the harnessing system is supposed to be up to par. But if the harnessing system is based on a 110-pound, woman and a 170-pound man, and you're 350 pounds, you can't be reassured that your safety is going to fall under the specifications that the studies or the machines tout. So high blood pressure, I would rethink these rides. Any sort of degenerative disc disease, osteoporosis, because you get banged around a lot, radiculopathy, neuropathy, family history of stroke, family history of blood clots, artery dissections. I would, aneurysms, if you have Marfan syndrome, I would really rethink going on some of these rides. But I got to tell you, they're fun. The water rides, there was a water park, and in the water park, they had like these slides where you're going through in the dark and you're in the water and you're getting wet. And it was just, I had a good time. So, I love amusement parks, but, just talk to your medical provider and make sure you're healthy for that. And then make sure you also don't snort on the ride. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this was an interesting question I got over the weekend. Somebody had asked, I guess they were watching the movie Hot Tub Time Machine. That was in 2010. And I don't know if you saw the movie Hot Tub Time Machine. It's where a bunch of guys get into a hot tub. It puts them back into the 1980s. They don't realize necessarily they're in the 1980s because they don't believe that they really traveled through time. And so one of the actors is trying to figure out what year it is when he's like, wait a second, this is the 80s? So he asks one of the characters walking around, and he goes, what color is Michael Jackson? And when the person says Michael Jackson is black, he screams because that means his hit Michael Jackson. This was definitely the 1980s when Michael Jackson had not lightened his skin color. And somebody had asked me, why did he do that? In the 80s, they were talking about how Michael Jackson, they were accusing him of wanting to look more white, how he was abandoning his, his black roots. But I loved his music. I loved his glove. But once I got into medical school, we started to think about, wait a second. Once we learned about vitiligo, which is an autoimmune condition that causes you to lose pigmentation of the skin, and one treatment is lightening the rest of the skin. If you can't, bring the melanin back to the darker areas, you lighten the areas that you can. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if that's what was going on. Well, then I believe In a 1993 interview with Oprah Winfrey, he had addressed it. He had vitiligo, loss of pigmentation. Now, what body parts get affected first? Usually the sun-exposed areas, especially the hands. So this glove, my guess was that is how he covered up vitiligo on his hand. And the glove, his diamond sequined rhinestone glove, I loved that as a kid. I thought that was so cool that he had a glove, but it was just one glove. And it was probably on the hand that had the loss of pigment. Now, there were a lot more reports coming out saying he was diagnosed in the mid-1980s. They say he was using Benequin cream, which is a medication for vitiligo at the time. He also used hydroquinone treatments that would lighten the remaining pigment. And so people said that his skin bleaching was because he was trying to change or, transition to someone of a different race. But no, it was to treat and try to address the lightening of the skin to make vitiligo less noticeable. And so that's, it's interesting. Now, when I did see him wear a mask in the early 2000s, I was concerned about his autoimmune status. Was he wearing a mask because he was concerned about germs? Was he immunosuppressed? Or did he have other autoimmune conditions, such that he had to be on steroids? And then he later had trouble sleeping, and then he ended up dying, giving propofol injections to sleep by a cardiologist who he hired to help him sleep. And tragically, the medical issues of Michael Jackson, we might not even know the whole spectrum of them, but it was he struggled medically. But one thing that I found fascinating is how if he wore a glove because of the vitiligo and to cover up something medically, and then that turned out to be one of the most iconic things about his look, in addition to his moonwalking and his jacket and other sequins and his amazing talent. Boy, could he sing, he could dance, he could write. Very gifted artist. A lot of the personal issues that came later, we're not going to discuss, but when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. The idea of a glove, to cover up a condition that he was very self-conscious about, that's probably one of the better examples that I will give to families, whose kids are struggling with something, or they, let's make this something good. You have something different, but what you have that's something different can actually be something good. So, I have a family member that we thought it was a bone tumor, and thank God it wasn't, but has this kind of big bone mass. And we found this as a kid. And so, of course, the parents are freaking out, everything, got it tested, no cancer. But, the kid's like, well, why do I have this big bony bump? And I'm like, well, it's a super bone. That's really strong. Now, don't test it. Don't let anybody try to break it. But you have something that most people don't. It's like a super bone. And you can only do so much, but that's kind of what we do in medicine. When you have somebody who feels like they have a deficit compared to somebody else, there's a way you could turn it around. I talked to seniors about canes. I didn't realize how many senior citizens do not like canes. They do not want to have assisted devices. I'm like, really? You don't want to fall? Use a cane. I'm arguing with my mom. She doesn't want to use it. So then what's the silver lining? Well, a cane can also be a weapon. So now you have something that you could use if somebody accosts you, somebody tries to mug you. You could just take it, and even if it's a little quad leg where it has the little four legs on the bottom, I mean, you could, make it's four pronged. You could push somebody away with that. There's also canes where when you open them up, it's a baton or something on the inside. But when you tell people there's multiple uses, it just makes it more palatable. And so I tell people, look, not only do we not want you to fall, it's a very interesting psychological sort of thinking process where you tell somebody to do something so something doesn't happen, that you're preventing something that hasn't existed yet. A lot of people don't buy that. They're like, I'll deal with it when it happens. Once I see it's my reality, then maybe I'll do prevention. But that's why vaccinations have become very controversial. I think vaccinations help prevent disease, but you have a lot of people saying, but look, if polio never comes back, although I think it can, please get vaccinated for polio. But many people think, why then am I doing something to myself when that reality may never happen? So it's a very common thinking in the human mind, right? They're not crazy. That's how some people process that. But when you tell them this is doing something now for you, this is giving you some sort of protection now. And so, like, for example, vitamins. Some people are like, well, I know I got to take vitamins so I don't get sick, but it's not wintertime, so I'll wait till the winter. But if you tell them, but the vitamins are right now helping your skin, they're helping some of your current processes. Oh, okay, well, then maybe. So, I think it's something that a lot of times we miss as parents with school. You tell a child to do good in school so they could later go to high school, they could later go to college, they could later get a job. That falls on deaf ears. They're like, you want me to do something now so that 20 years from now, something good is going to happen? They won't understand. Some don't understand that concept. But if you tell them, every time you read, you're building up your brain, you're improving your memory, you're making your brain stronger today by doing this. And that incentivizes them sometimes more. Same thing with diet and exercise. People want to know that if they are going to be doing something, their arteries aren't already clogged where it doesn't help. You can actually reverse things today. If you stop smoking, you could start reversing the diminishing lung health today. If you start exercising, you start strengthening the bones today. So my recommendation is, if you're starting to kind of think about, well, is it all about the future or what benefits do I have now? Look at what benefits you're doing now, and then those benefits build up. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So I'm sure you saw the video of how frightened people at church were Sunday morning at the Cross Point Church in Wayne, a suburb of Detroit, when Brian Anthony Browning, 31 years old, plows into the church with his truck and then starts spraying bullets with an AR-15. Now, this Brian Anthony Browning was 31 years old. He was shot dead by security guards. Thank God there were security guards at the church Sunday morning. And he rammed his Ford F-150 truck into the building at about 11:06 a.m., and then he opened fire during church service. And it was like right after I think kids were up on the stage. And boy, did the congregation leader, I don't believe it was a pastor, but there was a female that really kept her cool and got everybody to the back. And I think there was only one person injured from all of this when it could have been so much worse. But the Wayne Police Department said that the suspect, we may not have a motive, but they believe he might have been suffering a mental health crisis, which unfortunately is an ongoing theme with some of these individuals that decide to massively shoot and kill innocent individuals. They do not believe it was an organized terror attack, per se, related to terrorism. The suspect's mother is a member of the church. Now, from what I understand, he's gone to church a few times. I don't think he was an active member. But according to Daily Mail, the church security team was alerted by the gunfire and reacted quickly to engage the suspect outside the main entrance doors to the church. Hallelujah. I tell you, it's frightening to think that somebody could want to do something like that, let alone get to the point where they could start shooting at a congregation. One security guard was shot twice in the leg. He is recovering in the hospital after surgery. Some bullets made it into the church, but thank God nobody else was hurt. He was armed with an AR-15 style assault rifle. He had more than a dozen magazines of ammunition, a semi-automatic handgun, we're being told by police, and extended magazine and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, meaning he planned on killing as many people as he could. Police found rifles, the handguns, the large amount of ammunition when they searched his home as well. But interestingly, no criminal history, no prior contact with police. All we know is that he had some breakdown, which really makes it difficult, because when we try to profile and identify and prevent the next mass shooting, if all we're doing is going to police records, we could still be missing a whole slew of people. And unfortunately, sometimes the first time somebody does ever commits a crime is when they're committing the mass murder. So the church service was being live streamed at the time. Because many services now are live streamed for people that can't make it. And so that's how you could see the families run and people in church saying, everybody, let's go to the back. Let's go to the back. Everybody now, let's go. And kept their cool. They were prepared. So, I want to prevent this from ever happening again. And as a doctor, I wish we could stop all mental health crises. I wish we could, find a person before they get to this level, intervene, have them rethink their thoughts, give them therapy so they don't have murderous intentions. But, when people ask, what is a mental breakdown? There's no exact definition. It's where your logical thinking, your humanistic, your ethical, your empathetic, logical, sane thinking gets hijacked somehow and falls apart, where you aren't thinking sanely, you aren't thinking empathetically, and you're whether you believe in demons, whether you believe that your brain just the chemistry, the neuroendocrine loads just overwhelm the brain, or somebody's underlying hatred and desires decide to take over, they lose. Your mental breakdown is where you lose control of your basic human, shall we say, legitimate, justifiable, logical, ethical thinking. And you break down. And this breakdown could involve you just isolating yourself, you just crying, you being away from people, or it could manifest as you attacking. And when you can't control that, it causes harm to you and everyone else. So we're really decades, if not centuries behind where we should be in terms of being able to identify somebody who does this. You know, Congress and congressional leaders, they say, well, let's just get rid of the guns. So if they do have their mental breakdown, they can't access a gun. I don't know much about Detroit, but I don't think it's a very pro-gun area. I think they do have gun restrictions in cities around Detroit. So whether he wanted to kill with his, F-150 Ford truck, do we also take away the trucks? Do we take away knives? Do we take away, look at the New Year's Eve killer who killed multiple people by driving his truck into a crowd. So we can't just concentrate on, well, we have to remove the guns and we have to make it illegal for them to access guns. Adam Lanza, who shot up Sandy Hook Elementary School, he didn't own the gun. He stole that gun from his parent. So our gun restrictions are not necessarily doing the trick. And thank God the security officers were able to be armed and were able to neutralize them. So we keep we keep talking about weapons because it's easier to control. But we're not fixing the problem. And to fix the problem is not going to be easy. Somebody has to pick up on the nuances, pick up on the abnormal behavior, pick up on possible violent tendencies, turn that person in, have that person evaluated, and that could be tricky because any ex could say, oh, yeah, I think she's going to go completely wild and you need to detain her. Everybody would be taken in. And so it's logistically impossible. But I think there are some very common identifying red flags that we should have a process for. A child drawing pictures of people getting killed or shot, somebody with a complete obsession about, and always talking about, murder. And I think there's some definite red flags. I would love to know what this person whose mental health breakdown was preceded by, what were his diagnoses, what were some of his actions. And there are some similarities, but I'm not saying everybody's going to act similar, but we're going to have to do a much better job because many of these individuals that do become mass shooters, like these kids, it's their first crime. And when it's their first crime, they don't have a rap sheet. They don't have a history. They don't have a profile. Like the Uvalde shooter. I don't think he had any criminal background, but he just decided to go to the school and shoot kids. We also are going to have to really step up security. What saved the day was the security guard. And it looks like they had multiple security guards. We are going to have security guards at all schools, at all churches, like they do in other countries. We cannot let our guard down. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.